This is MRN Out Loud on MRN.com, presented by Bloomin' Mondays at Outback Steakhouse. And also brought to you by Hercules Tires. Ride on our strength.
MRN Out Loud, presented by Outback Steakhouse, with you after the racing at Martinsville, the first true short track of the season. Race number 6, and Joey, the scorecard right now shows 3 for Joe Gibbs Racing, 3 for Team Penske. Everyone else has been shut out so far. Kevin Harvick did get another top 10 finish. That means a free Bloomin' Onion at Outback Steakhouse. If you're checking this out on a Monday, go by and tell them you'd like that because Kevin Harvick produced again.
Eric Amarola with another solid top 5 effort.
Nice run.
I think that's 4 or 5 in a row possibly for those guys. Extremely strong. And again, that's a good problem to have when you're in the top 5 so much and you're just trying to break the barrier, break that seal to victory lane. Ryan Blaney's doing the same thing. He's had some, I think, 3 top 5s in a row. Again, strong teams. So competitors of Eric, the teammates of Eric Amarola with Kevin Harvick and Clint Boyer, who I thought could have competed for the win had they not had
2
the
penalties.
2
got
penalties.
him. Yeah.
Denny Hamlin, who could have competed for the win, drove back in the top 5.
Had a uncontrolled tire.
Another
I think.
penalty. But both of those teams who showed a lot of speed and being able to drive through the field, I would have liked to have seen that race at the end with Denny Hamlin, Clint Boyer, and Brad Keselowski, who clearly was dominant of the guys he was racing around with.
But he said he felt like Chase had the better car most of the day.
Well, and he was able to say that because he never saw Clint Boyer and or Denny Hamlin because those
right
guys
up on his bumper. Yeah.
Those guys were coming to the field. So yeah, Chase had a really good car. If he'd have got out in front, that would have been a very good race. But he didn't. The bottom line is Brad Keselowski, who on Friday I thought actually had a premonition a little bit. Somebody was interviewing him and about an opinion about good racing. And he was very honest. He goes, look, I don't want it to be a good race. I want to lead every lap, and I want to destroy the field.
That's his job.
He essentially did that, him and Paul Wolf. And a quick shout-out, we got to remember that not only did Brad drive a fantastic race, Paul called a good race and had a good car. No mistakes on pit road. Those guys came in first or went out first or second the entire day on pit road.
The only difference was the time when Chase Elliott actually drove by Brad, but then when the next pit stops came, Brad beat him back off pit road, and that was essentially that.
And we see so many mistakes on these short tracks take you out of victory. Yeah, you can get back in the top 10, back in the top 5 like we saw Boyer and Hamlin, but what you didn't have is you had those guys, their execution was flawless really on pit road. So it's really, we've talked about it 100 times on the show about it being a team sport. Martinsville really exaggerates that because any mistake made by the driver, by the crew chief, or by the crew, pit crew, is shown because it's such a short track and it's so hard to pass there. And what we saw yesterday was really if it was a cute quarterback rating, it'd be a 150. Right. It was
everything right.
Exactly. It was almost a perfect day on behalf of those guys. So
you don't see those too often.
No, and he led more.
I think it had been something like 92 maybe or something. I forget the exact date, but Kyle Petty had one a little bit more dominant when he used to kill it at Rockingham all the time.
Yeah, and I think it was 1976 since we saw that many laps led at Martinsville for a wreck. They've had good cars in the past and always had small glitches. These obviously we were able to win a race a handful of years ago at Martinsville to get Brad his first victory at Martinsville. We all got clocks, and there's one in my house. It's really cool. And now they were able to, again, flawless execution from start to finish. Qualified third, which, again, for Brad is really good at Martinsville. Everything he does correctly behind the wheel during the race doesn't amount to being good in qualifying, but he was able to have a really good car, have a really good qualifying effort, which gave them a good pit stop. So again, it started on Friday, or it started on Saturday qualifying after the truck race, and then carried over to the end of that race, and really it was virtually a perfect weekend for the 2-car.
It really was. 2 other things jumped out at me, and I wanted to get your opinion on them. One, I read this stat, and it floored me. Chase Elliott finishing second yesterday was the first top 5 for Team Hendrick since Chase won at Kansas last October. That's hard to believe.
They're going through a phase. We have 7-time with a new crew
chief. And he really wasn't a factor at all yesterday.
Right. So we have 7-time with a new crew chief. We have 2 very young drivers with Alex Bowman and William Byron that are still trying to settle in to getting a hold of these Cup cars. We have the Camaro last year being the initial entry into the Camaro. They're still trying. There hasn't been a really strong Camaro to talk about, right? We've seen that.
I mean, Kurt Busch came in having been the top Chevy in what, 3 of the first 4 or 4 of the first 5, something like that.
Yeah, over at Chip Ganassi Racing, which is, again, unusual. But, again, we have a very experienced driver with Kurt Busch. He's one of the few drivers that can put the car on his back and carry that team a little bit. Because he realistically, up till yesterday, was outperforming his teammate with Kyle Larson. So it's interesting to see the transition period with Hendrick Motorsports. And, again, Chase is kind of carrying that banner over there right now. And, again, he proved correct yesterday.
The other thing quickly before we go to break that jumped out at me, up until yesterday or this weekend at Martinsville, what we had seen from RCR was really good qualifying efforts, and they didn't race so well. At Martinsville, a not good qualifying effort. That's not even grammatically correct. A less than stellar qualifying effort for Austin Dillon. Then he drives up into the top 10 on a day when everybody's screaming, "You can't pass! You can't pass!"
Yeah, he had good cars in race trim, and again, that's one of those things that we see it because the cars, we go into a impound style qualifying race. And sometimes on these long runs, which is what you need at Martinsville, it's not conducive to putting up one good lap in qualifying. And that's where, again, the balance really shifts. Ryan Blaney was one of those
It was just
cars.
a complete 180 for them.
Ryan Blaney was the same way. Yeah. Poor qualifying effort. He started just inside the top 20, but his long run speed was really, really good. And that was a very similar thing with the 3-car.
All right, we got a lot to talk about on this edition of MRN Out Loud. There are some changes coming as we head for Texas Motor Speedway this weekend. We'll outline some of those and kind of tell you what we think and what we might see going forward from here.
Citywide to countryside, whatever you drive, wherever you go. Hercules Tires has the value, selection, and industry-leading warranty to get you there, no matter where the road takes you. To learn more, visit HerculesTire.com. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength.
G'day, America. It's the moment you've all been waiting for. That's right, Outback Delivery is here. Now you can enjoy all your Outback favourites anywhere. Our signature centre-cut sirloin at home.
It's here.
Or game day party platters with Kookaburra wings that'll have both teams cheering.
It's here.
Or steak and lobster for a date night at home.
It's here.
Head over to Outback.com and place your orders because Outback Delivery is here. Outback Steakhouse. Aussie rules. Delivery availability varies. Delivery charge may apply.
For more than 80 years, Detroit Diesel has been the legendary driving force powering many of the best-known trucks on the road. Through our state-of-the-art Detroit technologies in components and safety systems, we've earned our customers' trust as a reliable business partner dedicated to improving their bottom line. It's no wonder they continue to depend on Detroit to keep them safe and efficient on the road. When you demand it all, demand Detroit.
The Mustang is one of those things. I think we started the season with a lot of question marks and a lot of people, asking how the car would come out. And I felt really confident based off of some of the things I'd seen on the engineering side before the season started that the car would come out and be very strong. But you just don't know until you get on the racetrack. And with the kind of the curveball in the development cycle of the 2019 rules package. There were some big question marks, and I would say right now it's passing with flying colors. So it seems like when the Ford Fusion came out in 2013, there wasn't a lot of real, I don't know how to put it, there wasn't as much teamwork building that car, and I thought that car didn't come out the gate as well as it should have. And the Mustang had a lot of teamwork between Ford Performance and the teams, all the way down to the driver and crew chief level. That I thought was really cool to see. And I thought they had some sound engineering, some sound practices, and felt really good about it accordingly.
Back here on MRN Out Loud, Woody Kane and Joey Meyer with you. So, Joey, how do we see a situation, to play off Brad's point there, where the Camaro comes out in the Cup Series last year, and they still haven't gotten back to their former glory, if you want to put it that way. And yet the Mustang comes out, and they've got 3 wins so far.
Well, one of the things the Camaro is experiencing is the quality of drivers in the Camaro. Not that they're bad, but it's the number of drivers in the Camaro that are going to be competitive versus the Toyotas and Fords. When you start looking at the number of champions, last year you had Kurt Busch and Kevin Harvick at one team, both champions.
Very experienced, and yeah.
Correct. You had Brad Keselowski in a Ford, another Ford champion. You had Kyle Busch over in the Toyotas with that plethora of Gibbs drivers.
Joey Logano's a champion now.
Right.
Yeah.
You had a lot of strong drivers in the Ford/Toyota camp. The guy carrying the banner for the longest time in the Chevrolets was one guy. It was Jimmy, right? I mean, you had other Chevrolet drivers, but really one guy was winning all the championships. So now you take a car that comes out into the industry, and it's not that it's terrible. We can't blame it on the car by itself. We still have a very young group of drivers that are getting used to being in the Cup Series. Chase is now the oldest of the young guys, right?
Yeah. Which sounds kind of weird to say, but I get you. Yeah.
Right, but we have a very young group of drivers still trying to get their feet. It's difficult to drive these Cup cars because you're still competing. Look, William Byron's a great driver. Alex Bowman are great drivers. Kyle Larson, these guys are great young drivers. They're still competing. Remember, a year ago we talked about the young driver, the young guns. It was all the old guys that was winning the races, right? We don't have a lot of old guys in these Camaros helping with the progress of these teams. They're doing better every
Although
race.
Chase Elliott came on at the end of last year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've seen that, his performance already this year. But one of the intriguing things, and we heard Brad pick up on it a little bit, the new Ford Mustang was being developed, and the idea behind the Mustang to make it a better car was developed before the new rules package. So one of the question marks as the Ford Mustang came out and after the new rules package came out was, well,
they got to go back to the drawing board
We
now.
weren't counting on this because what they were trying to do is give the car some little balance shift, a little more downforce, a little more side force, and then boom, all these big rule changes come out. It actually took the balance of the car that was being developed and switched it a little bit, and the teams weren't sure how bad it was going to be. So kudos to the whole Ford group, and it is. The Stewart-Haas guys and the Team Penske guys and the Wood Brothers guys, they work very, very closely together with the idea that it's a strength in numbers game right now.
Yeah, it certainly is. And that leads to the next thing we talked about. We teased going into the break. There are some changes coming up. We saw after Auto Club, NASCAR said that there will be some changes to qualifying heading for Texas. As we record this on a Monday, they haven't been officially unveiled yet, but we do have some indication of there will be some tweaks around the edges. It's not going to be a huge change, but the idea being they don't want people to sit there on pit road and not go take a lap, or at least make it around where they get credit for a lap.
Well, this is going to be kind of my soapbox.
Okay.
Kind of my soapbox.
I don't say go kind of. Let's go full bore.
Well, because
there it is.
There it is. A couple weeks back, we had so much junk being talked about post-qualifying that it was frustrating to me because I was told, somebody told me from a media member that the fans sitting in the grandstands, they lost out. They didn't get to see qualifying.
Well, they did.
That was my point. They got to see the exact same thing that they would have seen had the cars crossed the line in time to make the lap. They didn't miss out on anything. And the simple fact that a week later we were talking about this on Monday and Tuesday made qualifying more intriguing.
Me too.
Right?
I thought the same thing. Yeah.
It's
interesting to watch teams try to figure something out.
Yes, exactly right.
That's compelling.
Exactly. That's what made qualifying. Okay, so now we're a week gone. Everybody's, we got to have these rule changes. We got to make these teams pay for this. And thankfully, from the word on the street and the little birdie in Martinsville, as everybody's talking, we're not going to have huge rule changes. We're going to have essentially the teams are going to be required to stay single file on pit road, not being able to block the end of pit road because that's what we saw in California.
And the thought was that some guys may have gone if they could have had a pathway to get off of pit road.
And what it used to be two lines. The middle lane always had to be open. Well, what happened was the guy in the middle started going out, not wanting to be the first guy. Well, he stopped.
Trying to get another one to go.
Trying to get the other one to go.
Yeah.
So we ended up blocking pit road. And then the other small
tweak,
revision, if you will, is if the last group of cars does not make an attempt, which means you have to at least start the clock.
Yeah, not the whole group, but anyone within it.
Leaving pit road is not the attempt. The attempt is getting back to the start-finish line
in time.
You start the clock.
Right.
If you don't make an official attempt, then you're going to start in the rear. Those are the two tweaks that we're going to see during qualifying, and I think we're going to hear more later on Tuesday or Wednesday from NASCAR.
Yeah, and I think that will go a long way towards addressing it, because while we both thought it was kind of compelling, I don't think it's something we want to watch every single week.
And you wouldn't see
right,
it. And you
right.
and you would not. And that's the thing that I kept trying to talk to these other people. We're not going to see this every week. The teams don't.
They will figure it out.
Correct. We don't want to not qualify. That wasn't our goal. Our goal was not to help the guy behind us get the pole.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to leave off pit road and we're going to slow down because we don't want the guy behind us getting the help. We want him to drive by us.
Yeah.
Well, we ended up screwing everybody, including ourselves, essentially.
Because nobody wanted it.
Went.
You go. No, you
exactly,
go. No, you go.
Exactly. And so the teams figure it out. They're smart enough. We understand we have to qualify. And I think this little bit of incentive by being penalized, a larger penalty, essentially, if we go back to California in that scenario with the new tweak, the 13th place car would be your pole sitter.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that's okay. I can get down with that.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
Right. But to say that the fans lost was driving me crazy.
Yeah, me too.
Because we actually saw something that was more compelling than, well, these fans bought good tickets and they didn't get to see their driver make an attempt. Well, what happens to the guy that was a Paul Menard fan? We qualified 25th. He didn't get to see his guy make the second or last round.
Or conversely, what if you buy a ticket to a basketball game or a football game to support your team and they get blown out? You did not get your value?
Or the value of the fact that LeBron James didn't start the game you bought the ticket for. You can't help that. That's just part of it.
Yeah.
We weren't trying to make it bad. It just turned out that way, but the teams will fix it themselves.
Absolutely, they will. All right, another break on MRN Out Loud, and there are some more changes underway coming up at Texas we'll talk about, because now the teams will get to apply some knowledge that they've learned from the first part of the season.
G'day, America. It's the moment you've all been waiting for. That's right, Outback Delivery is here. Now you can enjoy all your Outback favourites anywhere. Our signature centre cut sirloin at home.
It's here.
Or game day party platters with Kookaburra wings that'll have both teams cheering.
It's here.
Or steak and lobster for a date night at home.
It's here.
Head over to Outback.com and place your orders, because Outback Delivery is here. Outback Steakhouse. Aussie rules.
Delivery availability varies. Delivery charge may apply.
Clutch Coffee Bar in Mooresville, North Carolina is redefining the drive-thru coffee game in Race City, USA. The Clutch experience is fast, friendly, and delicious. Quality drinks and unmatched customer service is the name of the game. Clutch Coffee Bar offers signature lattes and mochas, custom flavor-infused energy drinks, smoothies, and more. Over 25 flavors, there's something for everyone. Visit our 2 locations in Mooresville, 356 Williamson Road and 154 West Plaza Drive. Open daily from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Power up today with Clutch Coffee Bar.
Check out MRN.com for a new podcast series called The Tough Trucks of NASCAR. 25 years and still trucking. We'll take you back to some great races.
Benson to the bottom of the racetrack. This is the race for the lead and the win at Michigan.
And some wild moments.
One truck is in the air. Matt Crafton upside down.
And we'll let you hear the stories behind them.
He was too bullheaded to let me pass him, and I was too bullheaded to let him have it.
Download the show for free on iTunes and at MRN.com.
MRN Out Loud, presented by Outback Steakhouse. Woody and Joey along with you, talking about what we saw at Martinsville and transitioning now toward what we're going to see at Texas. We talked a little bit about qualifying, Joey, but I talked to a number of guys, including some crew chiefs over the weekend at Martinsville, who say there was a little bit of an issue going into the season because with the new rule package and with the Western Swing, all those cars had to be prepared well in advance. Now, with Martinsville being kind of a different beast, similar to what Daytona is, not that the cars are similar, but it's kind of a one-off, if you will.
It's an anomaly.
Yeah, anomaly. That's a good word, good way to put it. They'll go to Texas with the knowledge that they have gained from Atlanta and from Las Vegas and from Phoenix and from Auto Club Speedway and build new equipment, new cars that they'll run at Texas. I think we'll see something a little bit different as the guys apply what they have learned so far this season for the first time.
Absolutely. We're going to see this is the new configuration version 2. right? This is going to be
because going west, you had what you had. You had to be prepared way in advance.
Absolutely, and this was all an engineering side of things. Now we have a practical application to where the guys have come back, modified their cars to make them run better in their opinion, and we're going to see a little different race in Texas to begin with. We probably won't see as much wide open throttle for as many laps as, say, we saw at California or maybe even Atlanta, right? The tires aren't going to wear out. We're going to see a little smoother track. I'm hearing that they're going to add some VHT to Texas.
I heard that too. A crew chief told me that this weekend that they were kicking that around.
Yeah, they're going to try to widen the track out.
And what else might they do? Are they going to do the Dragon, you think?
Tire Dragon. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if we do the Tire Dragon and the VHT,
well, that's a gooey mess, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how that's going to work, but we'll see. We'll see what they do, what lane they do. The bottom lane doesn't need more spray, right?
But you got two different ends of the track at Texas.
That's it, exactly. 1 and 2 becomes even though it's wide, it's very wide, it becomes very narrow because of
which happens a lot on repaves.
Exactly right. It's we've seen it at Kentucky and Kansas and things of that nature. So that'll be interesting. The other thing I believe NASCAR's making is we're getting rid of one of our configurations essentially for everywhere. I think
that's been overlooked a lot, is that there are different elements within the package that we've seen at different places.
We had a Martinsville package, we had an Atlanta package, and we had a California package, right? We had drag ducts in or drag ducts out of the car.
Now that's the one where, like we saw at Indy with the Xfinity cars, and we've seen this year, but primarily that's the one most people might remember, where the air comes in and it's kind of forced out the wheel wells to make a bigger bubble.
It's trying to make the guy behind you not take the penalty as big as the guy leading the race. It's trying to take away his advantage, which is kind of goofy in racing. The leader should have the advantage. He's the leader, right? But it's trying to create the guy behind you, allowing you to
allow him to get up to you.
Get up to you. So the penalty of the guy leading isn't as bad, right? So the guys second and third and fourth aren't suffering a bigger penalty. Those drag ducts are going to be included in more races now this year, so that the configuration really will be just a short track race and the drag duct race. We won't have drag ducts. Possibly won't have drag ducts at Darlington.
That's interesting. Back to Martinsville for just a second. What we had going into it, or what we were told going into it, is the package wouldn't make as much of a difference at a short track like that, and yet Brad Keselowski dominates. Is that package related, or were they better prepared? Because the speeds in the turns may have been up a little bit from what we've seen in the past at Martinsville, but the straightaway speeds were not as high.
All right, so let's go back and look, and I have the list here of finishers, right? So Brad Keselowski, previous winner. Chase Elliott previously could have won a race. Kyle Busch.
Is that a stat now?
Well, I'm just saying. I mean,
I'm just teasing.
He's
that
contended.
just sounded funny. No, I got it.
Kyle Busch run really well there.
Yeah.
Ryan Blaney gets better every time he shows up. Denny Hamlin, let's see, he's won 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin Harvick's won. Clint Boyer's won.
Last year, in fact.
But those are top 7, top 8 guys. It's still the guys that run good.
It's like we said before the season, good is still good.
Good is still good. It's the whole cream rises to the top mentality. Brad drives Martinsville. He's one of the premier guys at driving Martinsville. Again, because of how he takes care of his tires, he can keep the grip in them longer, and now it just shows corner speeds were a little higher, which meant you had to get through the corner a little more efficiently to be able to get on the gas better because you're already going faster, right? And you're trying to take advantage of that 750-plus horsepower.
Yeah, because they did have all the horsepower back this past weekend.
That 2 car has run good with Paul Menard and Brad Keselowski for a long time. Again,
wait, Paul Menard?
Paul Wolf.
Yeah, different guy.
A little fraud. Another Paul.
If he's moved to a different role, I didn't get that memo. Okay, I got you.
That was a Freudian.
I got you.
No,
I got you.
Slip.
Yeah, I got you.
So Paul Wolf and Brad Keselowski have run good at Martinsville all the time. They've only brought home 1 victory. Yesterday captures their second one with good execution. But not surprising. The package, I don't think yesterday's package configuration had anything to do with who was going to compete. Now, it may have, like Denny Hamlin said post-race, it did give one team the click that they needed, but that happens regardless of the configuration. We saw it 2 years ago.
Somebody's going to figure it out early.
Correct, exactly right. Regardless,
no matter what they change.
Right, doesn't matter.
Somebody will be the rabbit.
We saw Truex do it at Coke 600, led 400 laps, right? So every race is going to have that one potential guy to click on that race and just dominate. And yesterday was Brad's turn.
All right, so with what you've seen so far from being on the roof for all the races and talking to the different teams and your team and what you're hearing around the garage, what are some of the things that we might see at Texas that we haven't seen so far? And I'm asking you, what have they learned that we will apply at Texas, do you think?
I don't want to be the negative Nelly guy, but I think you're just going to see more of an exaggerated California. Restarts are going to be hectic, going to be very, very important. Getting out front is still an advantage.
Clean air still rules.
It will always be.
That's physics.
Exactly right. You can't change it. The molecules in front of the first car are simply cleaner.
They're there.
Than the car. I don't care how you rearrange them. They're not aligned perfectly behind that guy. And we saw it at California. We've seen it at Vegas. You run lap times from 1st to 5th, and then you have lap times from 6th to 10th, and then you have lap times from 11th to 12th. The further back behind you are, the dirtier the air gets. It doesn't matter what they do.
And the harder it is to maneuver.
Exactly. So you have those groups of cars that when you're running 12th, you know you can get to 9th, right? You know you're not going to drive to 1st, not in this little section.
Right.
And you're trying your very best to get to 9th because then you know, okay, we're going to have a stage finish. We're going to have a stage caution.
And then I can adjust.
Then I can adjust, and now I'm 9th, and now I can race to 5th. It's very, very difficult, and it's still possible, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to take that 15th place car, come down pit road, come out 13th, and drive to 1st.
Right.
It's just not going to
happen.
happen.
It's in steps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I think you're going to see the restarts. The guys are understanding that restarts are mayhem. You can't just simply get in line because you go, okay, I'm going to pass this guy in a couple
You'll lose
laps.
4 spots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it takes you forever to make them back up.
Exactly right. We saw it yesterday a little bit with lap traffic being so impaired with the big spoilers creating a bigger drag. It would normally, you just drive by lap traffic, but it would take almost a full lap, which is 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But you'll see that restarts and lap traffic, again, getting out of the gas with these new tapered spacer motors, a little over 500 horsepower. It's not the horsepower, it's the recovery time that the drivers are really complaining about.
The response when you come up off. And that is supposed to be with a tapered spacer a little better than a restrictor plate, but it's still restricted.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
When you have a restrictor plate, again, we just said 5 seconds ago, we talked about air molecules being disturbed. When you have a restrictor plate, you've taken a hole and you're jamming this air through it. And it really disturbs the air underneath and makes it really inefficient. Well, now with a tapered spacer, it's more of a large funnel, and this air gets funneled and it gets compressed.
And it forces it in.
But it's not as disturbed. It's a smoother airflow that the engine just appreciates.
More efficient for the motor.
If you took the same air volume of a tapered spacer and the same air volume of a restrictor plate, the tapered spacer motor would produce more horsepower and more torque.
It delivers it more efficiently.
That's exactly it.
All right, we'll talk a little more about what's coming up here on MRN Out Loud as we get set to head to Texas this weekend.
G'day, America. It's the moment you've all been waiting for. That's right, Outback Delivery is here. Now you can enjoy all your Outback favourites anywhere. Our signature centre cut sirloin at home.
It's here.
Or game day party platters with Kookaburra wings that'll have both teams cheering.
It's here.
Or steak and lobster for a date night at home.
It's here.
Head over to Outback.com and place your orders because Outback Delivery is here. Outback Steakhouse. Aussie rules.
Delivery availability varies. Delivery charge may apply.
Winged Nation with Steve Post, Aaron Evernham, and Ashley Stremme. Your destination for all things winged sprint cars. Each Saturday at 8:30 and 11:30 a.m. on MAV TV. Live at noon on wingednation.com and Facebook Live. Join us for in-depth conversations with drivers and personalities that make up the greatest dirt racing on earth. The Winged Nation Preview Podcast each Thursday previews the upcoming weekend. Winged Nation, winged sprint car talk covering dirt tracks all across America.
Hi, this is Mike Backley. Join me and the rest of the MRN crew every Tuesday night for NASCAR Live. We'll get you up to date with the latest news stories and ready for the upcoming race weekend.
That's what it boils down to. You know, anything can happen in between, and we've seen it the last few years, kind of how crazy things can get.
Hear exclusive interviews, expert analysis, and much more.
Wheel that thing, brother, wheel it! That's why you never give up, guys. Never give up.
It's NASCAR Live this Tuesday night at 7 Eastern on the Motor Racing Network.
Back on MRN Out Loud, looking ahead at what we might see heading to Texas this weekend. But first, a couple of programming notes. Make sure you catch NASCAR Live, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, Tuesday night here on the Motor Racing Network, and after that at MRN.com. We've got a little more of our Kurt Busch interview that you haven't heard yet about he and Kyle growing up, how he's helping veterans get tickets to races. A lot more to come in that interview. Plus, I chatted with Adam Stevens, Kyle Busch's crew chief. They won last year at Texas. We talked with them about how to make a car fast at Texas and some of what we mentioned earlier about teams developing newer cars based on what they've learned to this point of the season. Also coming up on Friday, it's a triple header weekend at Texas. We'll have the truck race on the Motor Racing Network Friday night, 8:30 Eastern Time, the Vancore 350. And we'll have that one for you here. Our friends at the Performance Racing Network, PRN, will have the Xfinity race Saturday and the Cup race Sunday, the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 from Texas. So as we go forward now, Joey, moving to Texas and beyond, this is a situation where I think we're going to see some tweaks with what we've talked about with qualifying, what we've talked about with the cars. However, we're all moving towards some big changes coming up down the road. Scheduling changes are on the docket, but we've got 5- and 6-year contracts that have to expire first before we get to that point. We also have the changes coming with what they're calling now the Gen 7 car that's 2 years out. So whatever we're developing now is going to change based on the tracks we go to from here on out and the new car coming in a couple of years.
Yeah, one of the things we've overlooked this show so far was Kyle Busch got his 201st victory.
Yes, he did.
Which means that Richard Petty's only one away from tying Kyle
He can
Busch.
catch him. I saw somebody say that.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. It's only one away from timing. Perfect truck race for him, guys, in Martinsville. Now they get to go to Texas.
Although Ross Chastain gave him a fit for a while.
That was
amazing run.
Really wanted to.
I hate what happened to him, and I hope he gets another swing at a top-notch ride.
He is showing glimmers of just flashes of brilliance.
Yeah, you know the guy can drive. You see it every week.
Exactly right. But what we have coming, some changes. NASCAR has announced to the teams this weekend we have some all-star configuration changes. The engine manufacturers are getting more nervous about the longevity of their engines as the team application of tape on the nose of the car, which produces more downforce, is forcing these engine guys to run hotter on their engines. You know, your car engine is driving around town normally in the 210-degree range.
But you don't have tape on your street car grill.
No, exactly right. So, but we're around 210. We're still a pressurized system. Water boils at 212. So we can run a little bit warmer than that, not run overheat. Teams are now running in excess of 280 degrees. And the engine manufacturer going, look, man, we're reaching our limit.
Yeah.
Well, the crew chiefs are going like, I want more downforce at the end of this race, and we're putting more tape on. How much can you give me? And they're like, okay.
How long do you want the engine to stay together?
You can go 285 for the last 10 laps. Well, NASCAR, in the effort to help the engine manufacturers, has announced a new configuration for the All-Star race that we're going to allow. And the reason we add tape on the nose is to create more downforce.
Because if it's going into the engine, it's not pushing down on the car.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So now how can we recover some of the air that comes in the nose of the cars? They're going to actually install louvers or vents on top of the hood that the air that comes in the radiator opening can go through the radiator and through the hood at the same time and create downforce without using a blocked nose to do it. So it's kind of an interesting concept. But the engine manufacturers are really excited about this because, again, we can lower the temps on these engines and the teams won't lose the downforce that they would normally get by putting tape on the nose. So that's good for them. And then we're going to see some configuration. The Gen 7 talks about really creating a safety tub as we move forward. What we see in sports car racing or IndyCar racing, it's about a little more about safety potentially and allowing new manufacturers to come into the sport relatively ease. You got to remember, even though we're in a Gen 6 car, right, these guys have been building these cars for 60 years, okay? It's really difficult to jump into the sport
for a new manufacturer.
Manufacturer.
Or new to the sport, I mean.
Right, like say Honda. And I'm just making that up. Hyundai is going to come in with
whoever,
whatever. They're going to jump in and try to catch up with 60 years being behind. It's very difficult. So what we want to do is we want to make the entry-level guy at the Cup Series be able to come in and start with more technology behind him, and that's that new Gen 7 will produce that.
To get a starting point to make that thing go a little bit better toward the direction that we want it to go.
Because we saw several years ago, you know, when Michael Waltrip Racing and Toyota came in, initially they were spending a buttload of money, but they were very far behind on a technology standpoint. Now
how much is a buttload, by the way?
It's a lot. You should know. You're a big-time radio guy.
I know. I just got to – we're going to quantify that a little bit.
But the effect of what Toyota's done and caught up over the years, it took them a very long time and a lot of their money being spent and a lot of technology and a lot of people in place. And they're looking to shorten that time down because the last thing you want to do is bring in a brand new manufacturer, i.e. Honda or
whoever
it might be, Nissan or whatever the case may be, and for them to struggle It's just
for
bad.
years. How long do they stay at that point if they do it?
It's just bad business.
Yeah.
So when the technology on the engines gets more around the 500 horsepower, 600 horsepower range that the manufacturers are producing now, when you have the technology built in the cars, you don't have secrets being built on the cages and the technology of being where to put the bars. You have the concept of safety with the tub in the car. It just allows new people to come in the sport, and the more manufacturers, the better it is for the sport.
One thing, back to the earlier point you made about the changes with the temperatures in the engines. I talked with Doug Yates before the season started with Roush Yates Engines, who builds all the Ford motors. He said one of the things he was concerned to see how it played out was, and this relates to the temperature thing, with this package, he felt like, and he was right, they would spend more time on throttle, more time mashed to the floor, whereas in the past, you're on throttle, you're off throttle, you're on throttle, you're not stressing the parts quite so much all the time like you are now. With so much more on throttle time, that means you got to reassess the durability of your parts and pieces.
Yeah, in the past, we used to have tracks like Michigan, Pocono, and California where the on throttle time was immense relative to your standard miles and a halves. Now you've added those 3 tracks that you're still on throttle. Now we have the mile and a halves that we're on throttle. Yeah, the longevity and the durability of these engines is really putting it to test.
In an era where they're requiring them to use motors over and over again to cut costs.
Yep, and now we're using them 2 times a year, and now we have to use more races 2 times a year. So we're using less motors, but we're using them more.
Yeah,
for
and stressing them harder when they're in there.
That's it.
Yeah. All right, well, that's a lot to soak up before we get ready for Texas Motor Speedway this weekend. Again, check out NASCAR Live on Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, and after that at MRN.com. A lot of good stuff there. You can hear from Adam Stevens, Kyle Busch's crew chief, about some of this stuff we just talked about moving forward. We'll also have more of the Kurt Busch interview. We'll also have a special one with Chris Buescher, who's a Texas native, as he prepares to go home. Also, this weekend, Motor Racing Network will be there for the truck race on Friday. That's the Vancor 350, 8:30 Eastern time on Friday in the Truck Series. Kyle Busch is in that race, but it's the last truck race he can run eligibility-wise. All that we'll talk about next week. I'm Woody. He's Joey. See you next time.